My lords, first of all, Lord Truscott, has explained very well what I would like to say, so just hear to that. And actually, I was beginning to worry a little bit that it might be getting a bit dull until the noble Lord Moylan spoke, and so infuriated me that I feel I've got to say something. I'm not able to stay for the rest of the evening, but I just wanted to clarify a number of things. There are some people who own leasehold flats who are not poverty-stricken. This is true. But the characterisation of the 5 million leaseholders in this country as wealthy leaseholders is ludicrous. And the main reason why people are forced to buy leasehold flats, certainly myself, is because they are cheaper than buying non-leasehold flats. But as I will indicate in an amendment that will be discussed later, next time we're in committee, very few of us were originally aware of what a leasehold meant, and we thought that we were entering into the housing market and buying a house, having saved up very hard in order to do so, without realising that actually we were effectively pseudo-tenants with very few rights. So this has all been discussed often in this House. The other thing that I wanted to just clarify, and I hinted at it, and it will come up again, is the notion that anybody that's a charity that is a freeholder is doing good in the world. It strikes me as at least queryable. Many of the problems that leaseholders face are due to the leaseholders in local authority, that's not charity, but in local authority flats there are real problems, but also housing association leaseholders have endured incredible problems in relation to the way that leasehold is set up. And so I just do not think it is appropriate to just assume that because charities say that they're doing charitable work, that they are not accountable for some of the uncharitable consequences of the fact that they are effectively freeholders that make a huge amount of money out of leaseholders. And in that sense, it was the thing that really wound me up, I suppose, was the idea of this being a limitless expropriation scheme. Leaseholders have felt that they have been on the receiving end of a limitless expropriation scheme for some time. The reason why this bill is here, the reason why, in fact, across the political parties, from right to left and in between, that people have been so committed to tackling leasehold is because the iniquity of leasehold is that the capacity to have expropriate via service charge, via ground rent and so on, and many of the other issues, has meant that leaseholders have felt that there is no way of defending themselves against a freeholder that can just take. And I would just point out that having paid quite a lot in service charges, you don't necessarily get a service, and there's not very much you can do about it in these circumstances, which is what this bill is trying to address. And I am pleased that the government are doing it, although they're not going far enough, as I've said. The reason why I'm saying this is because I just feel as though this is actually whipping up a climate of fear. There's a sort of notion that there's all this kind of mad socialists going around stealing property from freeholders is mythical, absolutely mythical. Right. And I think it's very important that we don't allow myths to emerge in the midst of this discussion and have a proportionate sense of how we respond. I do not think that all freeholders are evil, but I think that the system is iniquitous. I also think, I mentioned the other day that it's taken a few years for me being in here to hear so much enthusiasm for feudalism, but it seems to be coming up again. I mean, it might make it difficult to untangle the law, as the noble Baroness Deitch explained, in terms of how many hundreds of years this goes back. And I'm not trying to be glib about it, but there has been a lot of commissions into this. But I do not think it is appropriate to sing the virtues of feudalism either. And I think feudal property rights are not in the interests of modern democrats, whether they're on the left or the right. And the idea that this is the equivalent of the difficulties of expropriating from Putin and so on, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And as to the European Court of Human Rights, I mean, the irony of the Conservative peers who, and by the way, I am one of the people who would leave the European Court of Human Rights, which I know everyone here will hiss and boo when I say it, but I would, because I do not think they should determine the decisions that we make either in this House or the other House. But the idea of those people who would otherwise say the European Court of Human Rights is something that is not to be relied on, to then defend it, as people have said for hedge fund managers, is ludicrous. And that is the point, is that the freeholders are not these kind of virtuous, benevolent, benign landowners necessarily. Some of them are, but most of them are money-making rentiers. And it's actually a criticism of the failures of capitalism, that the only way that anyone thinks they can make any money is ripping off leaseholders and then describing them as rich just because they've got a decent flat, in wherever. Right, you get the gist. That'll do.